Here's another little video with this Frontalini, which I'm doing a few repair jobs on. So the next repair job is to do with this part of the treble side where the keyboard is, and what we've got going on here, if I can just turn it around slightly, here there's a crack, and it's actually moving, so it's actually flexing along that line there. So that crack is in pretty important place because there's a lot of pressure when you're playing the accordion. You're putting a lot of pressure through the keyboard as you're pushing and pulling and playing the keys. So that unless that crack is fixed, that will just get worse and worse. So what I'm going to do now is investigate this crack and just work out the best way of making that nice and secure. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off the bellows and the bass side, so that's just on its own because less to work with, and I'm also going to take out the treble side reed blocks, and they're all out of the way as well, and I'll show you that when I've got all that disassembled. Okay, so I've taken everything out, so the reed blocks have come out from the treble side, so this is just a lot less to move around. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the straps for now, just because it just makes it easy to move everything around. So just give me a second while I take. Okay, so now that the straps are off, and it's just a bit more easy to move around. Now if I just focus in on the area that's cracked, so it's just, the crack is just here. Now the crack, it's difficult to see what's going on with the crack because you've got the celluloid covering it, and it's difficult to see from the inside what's happening because you've got the keys here. Now what I want to do is I want to fix the crack from the outside anyway, because there's more, it's a flatter surface to be fixing onto than the inside where it's kind of like that kind of shape. And so what first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this little patch of celluloid off so I can actually have a look underneath and see the crack itself, see the wood. Now what I have got, which is handy, I've got some celluloid that I've kept, which is an exact match for the celluloid on here. So it actually came from an accordion of the same vintage, came from a Hohner of the same vintage, and it's a really good match. So once I've taken off this little section here, I will then be able to cut out a piece of this to exactly the same shape, and I can actually then finish the fix with a piece of celluloid, so that it will make it really neat. So my next little job then is to carefully with a craft knife just cut this little patch of this kind of section of celluloid off. It would have been stuck on as a separate section anyway when they were putting the celluloid, but they would have put it on in sections, and that would have been a separate section. So I'm going to cut carefully along the lines, peel off that celluloid, have a look underneath. I'll show you when I've done. Okay, so as you can see, I've now taken off the celluloid from this section here. I'm just going to bring the camera up a little bit so I can just show you a bit more. Okay, now the interesting thing is, and I'm very glad I took the outside off because I can see what's going on now rather than trying to fix it from the inside. I can see that the crack where there's movement on the keyboard is actually, the crack is a join between two bits of the keyboard treble side, and so the glue at that point has obviously failed. That was actually an original joining point. You can just see the two different woods. So now we've got to think of a way of making that strong enough to last and not to open up, because it's already opening up now. So my plan is, I've got some, there you go, focus on that. I've got some thin aluminium, and what I'm going to do is cut a template out of this aluminium, which will fit exactly on there. Bring the camera down a bit so I can show you again. It'll fit exactly on here. I'm going to fill the crack with glue, so just try and open it a little bit, put some wood glue in there, but then I'm going to cut this to the right size and shape, and also shape it because it's a curve, get it really well done. Then I'm going to drill some holes in here and also countersink them, set some screws into the wood on both sections of here and here, and because I've countersunk the hole slightly, I should be able to get the screws nice and flat to this. And once I've got this screwed on, then I can cut a piece of celluloid again to the right shape and then stick that onto here. So that eventually, when it's all done, will give a really nice robust, there'll be glue in the crack, that will just help, but then having a plate here shaped, cut, made to look really nice, to fit properly and screwed to both sides will give a lot more strength to the joint, and then having a bit of matching celluloid over the top will then make it look really, really neat. Before we do anything else, though, one thing I have noticed, oopsie, is that between that bit and that bit is not quite flush. There's a bit of a kind of difference in height, and so before I do anything else, I'm just going to sand along there, just make sure that's all flat, and then next thing I'm going to do is cut with some tracing paper that temp shape out, and then I'm going to cut out the aluminium to the correct shape. So first thing then, I'm just going to sand this down, make it nice and flush, and then I'll show you how I'm going to do the template for the... Okay, so that's nicely finished. Also, it actually cleans up the wood before we glue anything on there. Put the glue in there, so that makes it a nice surface anyway. Right, next thing I'm going to get some tracing paper. I'm just going to trace around that shape, so I can cut something the same shape out of my aluminium. So let me just do the okay, so I cut out my tracing paper, and I just made sure that is a good match for that, which it is, and I've drawn out that, copied around that onto my aluminium. And so I'm going to go down to my workshop, put this in the vise, just get a junior hacksaw, and I'm just going to cut that out. First cut, I'm just going to cut on just outside that line, so it's going to be very slightly bigger, so I can always bring it back a tiny bit. So I'll cut that out and I'll show you when I've done that. Okay, so let's turn around, get the right way around, might be a good thing. So I've now cut out my template. I've cut out my metal and I've shaped it, so I've just curved it. So now I've got a really nice bit on there. I've chosen my screws, so I'm going to put 5 of these screws in flathead, not rounded at the top, not as flat as possible because I need to stick something on top of these. So the next thing is just to have a good look and work out the best place. So I'll just turn the camera around a little bit. I need to find the best place to attach the screws so I get the most, depth of wood. So I'm just going to get my Sharpie and I'm just going to mark where I'm going to put my screws somehow. One here, one there, one there, one there. Okay, so I've got my 4 positions where I want the screws to go, where I know I'm going to get a good purchase. I've just marked those on my little plate. So the next thing I'm going to drill those, and actually I'm going to do 5 screws, aren't I? Let's put another one in. Wait a minute. Can't count. So, okay, so I'm going to put another one somewhere in the middle there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is cut. No, I'm not. What we're talking about. I'm going to drill the holes so that they would be big enough to attach the, not focusing here, put the screws through, but also I'm going to countersink them slightly so that these screws will sit as flat as possible, so that I can then get a nice flat surface to stick the celluloid onto. So let me just go and drill and countersink my hole. Okay, so now I've countersunk the plate holes for the screws, so that's nice. Put that to one side. Next step is I'm just going to clear out any old glue from in this joint where this crack. So I'm just going to get a little blade in there, because what I want to do is clear out the old stuff, put some glue in there as well, and then put the plate on and clamp it. So it's going to be like belt and braces. So I'm just going to scrape out any of the old glue, and that's good. So now this is where it starts to get interesting. So I'm going to put some glue into that crack, and then I'm going to, because that glue will take hours to fully dry, so I'll have time to then get this plate in place as well. So, and then I'm going to get my screws, screw it, but what I'll do is I'll just make some pilot holes in the wood, so that not big holes, little pilot ones, just so they've got something to guide these screws in. So actually, let me just get all my screws and everything ready, and then I'll show you. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just work some glue into that crack, and actually I'm going to just use my finger just to force it in to that crack. Just keep pushing it in. Just flex it a bit. Just get a bit more glue in there. So I'm just going to keep pushing it down so it goes into the crack. Hopefully just get that as far in as I can. So just get a little t-shirt and clean off any excess. There we are. So that crack has got some glue in it, although that's not going to be the main thing that holds this together. It's going to be the plate. Okay, now I've got that in place. I'm going to have it on my knee, I think. So let me just bring that down. There. That's it. Brilliant. So now I've got that in place, I'm going to offer this up. This little plate. Hope you can see what I'm doing here. Where I think it's got its nice fit, which is there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a small little drill, and I'm just going to make a little pilot hole for the first screw. So it hasn't got to be very big, just enough for me to get the kind of guide for the screw to go in. So what I'm going to do here, get this in, and when you put drill bits into drills, always to double check. Oh, see, that one isn't straight. Always double check that they go in straight. Try that. It's better. There you go. So I'm going to hold that in place. I'm just going to put the first pilot hole in for the first screw, and just get that first one in. Here we are. So screw that first one in. go, that's looking good. Now what I'm going to do now is put some pressure onto the, just slightly compress it. So I'm going to bring that up a bit so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So I'm going to compress it a little bit. So I'm closing up that gap where the crack was, and I'm going to do another little pilot hole on the other end. So this is quite a lot of effort because you've got to keep it pressed now while I get that second one in. And once the second one's in, then it's a bit easier because it kind of holds the plate where it needs to be. It might be difficult to see what I'm doing exactly, but what I'll do, I'll get it all in and then you can see what I've done. I've just got to try and film and do quite a tricky little bit of engineering. Ooh! Ah! Got a big hole in there. I just want to stop that. Sorry about that, I actually dropped one of the little screws and so I had to pick it up again. Right, if I just show you what I've done. There we are. So that plate is now screwed on. I didn't put the fifth screw in because I want quite enough wood for it to be screwed into and I didn't want to damage it. So there's 4 in there and that's going to be perfectly strong enough, and it has nicely strengthened that joint, which is great. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to leave that now because that glue's got to dry as well, and I'm going to leave it and then I'm going to finish off the surface here and just file it flat as fast as I can before I put the celluloid on. So I'll show you that bit in a bit. I'm going to leave that glue to set as well. Alright, see you in a bit. Okay, so what I've done now is now attached the plate, screwed it on, and I've just filed the heads of the screws flat, so it's just a nice flat surface here. So what I'm going to do now, well, what I have done actually, is I've used the same template that I used for the metal plate to cut out a piece of the celluloid, and now I need to stick it on. So before I do that, I'm just going to rough up the surface of the metal just to give it a little bit of a key, and I'll do the same thing to the celluloid. So what I'm going to do is just lightly rough up the surface just to give it extra chance to stick. And also cleans off any grease or anything else that might be on there. Give that a nice little clean up and a bit of a key. There we go. There we go. Just that one. And I've got my celluloid here. Ooh, yeah, so I'm going to give the back of that a little bit of a sand, also gets any grease off that. gives it also a little bit of a key, so it's just going to give that a little bit of a light sanding. And then I'm going to use super glue, and I'm going to use some tape to hold it in place, because it's a bit difficult to clamp, because it's a funny place to put a clamp. Let's bring it down a bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to use some tape to hold it in place. So I'm going to get my glue and get a little brushy little thing. That should do it. So this is the last little step now. So let's undo my super glue. So I'm going to put some glue on the back of the celluloid. Make sure I get it completely into every corner. Oh, shit. Dropped it. Ah. Sorry, that's me being silly. And then I'm going to put a little bit on the surface of the aluminium as well. So this should work, because super glue is pretty good at sticking different materials together. So let me just put that to one side. I need to offer this up. Be careful not to get it stuck to my fingers. Oh, I just need to change the camera, so I'm going to just have to do it on my lap, because otherwise I can't see what I'm doing. Whee! Oh, then what I'm going to do now is just hold it, and then I'm going to get some tape on there to hold it completely flat. And then once that's stuck, I can just, any protruding edges or anything, I can just sand off. So let's get some tape on here now, just to hold it all down. I think it's going to look nice. Let's just get this done quite quickly. And then I'm going to hold it a little bit longer, and then I'll come and have a look at it in about an hour or so. So let me come back in about an hour, show you. Oh, Kikoki. I've left it for a good hour, and what I have done is just to allow easier access, I've just taken off a few keys. These are really easy to take off. You just have to press a little bar down here, little paddle, that just releases a little lever, and then you can just unspring them. So I'll put those back at the end once I've got the tape off and everything off. With these keys, they're very, very delicate, so we've got little springs on them. They're very delicate, so when you take them out, you have to be super careful not to cause any damage. Just put them down carefully and put them in the order that you took them out as well, so that you haven't got to fiddle around working out which key goes where. So okay, now it's time to get the tape off. So I'm just going to try and carefully remove this electrical tape without causing any marks or anything. So let's just have a little look, see what we got to. Bring that down a little bit more. That's a bit better. Right, let's just carefully take this tape off. There we go. Thing about electrical tape, it does stick nicely, but it comes off easy as well, which is good. Okay, so that's my finished celluloid is now nicely stuck. I'm really pleased with that. So the last thing I'm going to do is just, there's a few little edges that just need sanding just to make them flush with the rest of the treble side, but as a fix I'm really pleased. I think that's come out really well. So, and because I've got the same virtually the same shade of celluloid, it's really, yeah, I'm really pleased with that. So I'm just going to do the final little touches. So I'm going to put these keys back in, I'll do a little bit of sanding, and then I'll show the very finished result. Okay, thanks for watching this. Okay, so let's just kind of finish off this little video. I finished off the celluloid fitting, so I've just sanded it gently and just made a nice fit around there, and I'm really pleased with that. And so the whole kind of keyboard part, which was moving with that crack, has now been stabilised and it's just completely solid. So that's brilliant. So I've put the keys back in and I've just levelled up. There's one of the keys had just been slightly unlevel, maybe due to the crack or whatever, so I just levelled that up. They're all back in, doing what they should. So I'm happy with that. That's come out really well, so I'm pleased, and that should then make that much stronger, and so avoid any potential breakages of that. So I'm going to leave that one there. Hope that was useful. There we are. That's just my repair of the crack. Alright, thank you very much for watching.